Walk us through some of the ways that they would mind fuck these kids. You went through
sleep deprivation is huge.
Gotcha.
Right. So we called it wedging back in the day. Right.
It just sounds evil.
Yeah.
Let's
does,
wedge.
Right? Let's wedge, bro.
So Topher, you were involved in a cult.
Yeah.
Okay. What cult?
It was called. It was Enthusiastic Sobriety Cult.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was called Crossroads. It's actually local. It's still running today.
Really?
Yeah.
And where does it like run in like St. Charles area,
It's
St.
like
Louis? It's all
over the metro area.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's geared towards teenagers, So
Gotcha.
I got involved when I was a kid. I was a fucking mess when I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
So my parents were, pot dealers and shit. So, of course I smoked pot as a kid. Well, back in the 80s, they had this huge run on like sending kids to treatment centers, like, hey, you're going to go 30 days sober. You're going to go to this Weldon Springs hospital. And, as a kid, you're like, what the fuck? What the fuck is this shit? So along comes this Enthusiastic Sobriety program. I got involved with it at 14. I spent 12 years with this program, right? Sucked my whole family in. I ended up working for them, became a director of their operations in Houston and Atlanta, running their outpatient in Atlanta. But it was a whole part of my life, man, that was almost erased. Never went to clubs, never drank, never anything until I was like 27 years old.
So we're talking you went in at 14.
Got out at like 27.
27. So you were in there for 13 years.
Yeah.
Well over a decade.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you got out and you realized fast,
holy shit,
I don't know how to deal with the real world.
I don't even know how to deal with the real world. Yeah, because everything was so controlled. We were counselors, right? So we never got paychecks. The thing was, you're a kid, they suck your parents in. They're like, hey, your kid's a drug addict. So you put him through all this hospitalization and it's failed, right? So we're gonna take over. He likes being here, and don't give him a curfew. I never had a curfew, right? Never. I could smoke. I was smoking cigarettes at 14. Parents buy me a carton a week, as long as I stayed sober, But what they would do is they would take us out to like 1 a.m, a group of us, we'd go to Zombie Road, right? Running around Zombie Road in the woods and shit.
We just talked about that on our show. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go to Equidome. Right?
Yeah.
Equidome, fucking, staying out late, up all night and shit. But we were always, if you try to deal with anybody on the outside, like other kids outside of this group, you were outcast. Like, hey, you can't deal with these people, like you're outside of the group.
They controlled all of your contacts, all of your relationships, everything. Wow.
Yeah.
And at the time, was a part of you thinking, this is wrong? No. You were completely in.
Kind of felt like you were gaming the system, in a way. You're like, oh, yeah, I get no curfew.
Insider track, you got something. Wow.
Yeah. And then, later, I kind of got, they always picked like your most charismatic folks, and they would raise them up through this cult, through the system. Right? And next thing you know, now you're working for them, right? Now you're a counselor for them. They send you, get some training in Texas, and you become a counselor, You really get the inside scoop of it all. And
as a counselor, what are you doing? Is your job to recruit members?
Yes.
Is your job to go to families and convince them that this outpatient program is good for their child?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's a part of it. We had meetings like AA. You'd have meetings every night of the week. You'd always be at those. You'd get new people, newcomers. You're working with their families. You're trying to get them signed up for outpatient. We actually, counselors never made a check. We never got a paycheck. I never got a check from them. But what they do is they put us all as counselors in one apartment, right? And like, so in Houston, 7 of us lived in an apartment, right? And we get food dropped off. Like they drop off bags of food, and it was like not good food. It was like cans of tuna. Mac and tuna was our thing, because it was cheap.
Gotcha.
Parents would give us food and stuff, and I guess the whole guise of it from the top head, Bob Meehan. He just died. The guy just died. He wrote a book called Beyond the Yellow Brick Road, right? Yeah. That's what he based all this shit off of.
I need to look him up because I told you before, he sounds so familiar. But you said like he has been in the news. He's a controversial figure.
Like in the early 80s, right? He started this Palmer drug abuse program that fucking got hit up by 60 Minutes, and they was accused of being a cult and all this stuff, and they were interviewing him. He's defending it. Well, they shut all the PADAP programs, these programs off. They shut them down. They just reopened them under new names, which the name now is Crossroads. Right? And it's been named that since the 80s.
Yeah. And now Crossroads is one of the names.
Correct.
But what are some of the other names around the country?
Yeah, you got Pathways in Arizona, I believe. You've got Insight in Houston and Atlanta. And
so if anybody listening right now, even though it's not called Crossroads, it could very well be under one of those names, something else. Correct. And they're that's that's manipulative.
Oh man, it's so manipulative.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did you got out at 27?
Yeah.
What made you get out?
I got thrown out. So I tried to date a girl outside of the
cult,
the
whatever,
cult,
the
right?
organization.
Yeah. And the head guy, Bob Meehan, I worked with him. And now the guy that I was friends with, or the guy that I worked with in Atlanta when I got kicked out, is married to Bob's daughter, right? Bob Meehan's daughter.
Wow.
Yeah. They kicked me out because I was trying to date someone outside the program. They're like, you're out. You're no longer. And I literally packed up I owned an Escort at the time in Atlanta, just drove home to my parents' house at 27. I was like, I don't even know how to live. I never even had a real job.
Yeah.
Now
you had to go and ask him permission to date?
Yeah.
And then he just said, no, you're out.
Yeah.
No, not like any, hey,
You
Topher, you can't date.
You can't
no,
date
it
outside.
was,
Yeah, you're out.
automatically you're out. That you were even considering dating.
Yeah, outside of it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just high. I mean, that's controlling.
Yeah, it was so controlling. And we would spend, he'd fly into town from California. We'd have to go into these, what they call staff purposes, because we were all therapists, or well, not therapists, but counselors, right? Working for the cult. And he would always go in to try to like mind fuck you and like, what are your issues, and control you, and you're doing this wrong, and you're very manipulative.
Walk us through some of the ways that they would mind fuck these kids. You went through
sleep deprivation is huge.
Gotcha.
Right. So we called it wedging back in the day, right?
It just sounds evil.
Yeah,
let's wedge.
Let's wedge, bro.
Oh man.
So you'd go to Denny's, you drink coffee all night. How many days can you stay up, without sleep? Right, taking them to meetings and hanging out, equidomes, whatever.
And did they do this as like almost like how like kids are with their competitions and this and that? Did they kind of like disguise it as, hey, this is a competition?
Yeah,
let's see who can stay up the longest.
Right,
but really, they're just mind fucking you and brainwashing you the whole time.
Yeah. And and what they would kind of like, it's okay to break the law, but as long as you're not doing it on drugs. That's kind of the thing. We would steal like lawn jockeys and, go stealing ornaments from yards.
I seem to remember that in the Constitution of the United States. Yeah. You can do this, you don't have to obey the First Amendment as long as you're not on drugs.
Some laws you can just, trespass is legal if you're not on drugs.
Wow. And I mean, like, so people are starting to wake up to it, and you really started to wake up to it.
Yeah.
You got out at 27. At what age were you like, did you have that realization, that epiphany? Oh shit! I was in a cult.
Real quick.
I mean, what's the time frame? If you could,
I mean, I would say. I mean, it took me 2 years to actually get out of my house, kind of. Okay. Maybe a year and a half to actually get out of my house. But I pretty much knew instantly that I was involved with something very mind controlling at the time. Which, honestly, knowing me now, people are like, how could you ever be sucked into that? My best friend Brian Nichols, he's like, I told you, because I tried to take him. I tried to recruit him back when we were teenagers, We're best friends now. And he's like, I told you back then, get the fuck out of there.
Wow.
So.
Well, no, I mean, you said you weren't allowed at bars. You weren't allowed at clubs. But I'm like, that's the only side of Topher that I know is, music clubs and bourbon and all this kind of crap. But it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So other people started to wake up, right?
Yeah. So there's a huge movement like on Facebook, social media. It's called Enthusiastic Sobriety, and the cult, Enthusiastic Sobriety Abuse is one of the things. So anybody out there that's involved in this shit, or parents hearing it, man, look it up. Do your own information. Call me. I'll tell you exactly what I went through. I mean, I can't say that it's all bitter, but it's definitely not right. It's definitely not the way you want your children to be, and what do you want to be involved. It's very damaging,
But they come at it like they're the saviors. They come at you with smiles saying, hey, we're going to save your kids. And you think you're taking the lesser of two evils when really you're just sending them down another rabbit hole.
So when they walk in, the counselors, quote unquote, they all got long hair, and they're cool looking. They're younger. So they look like, drug addicts, dirtbags. So the kids naturally, but they're not.
Yeah.
So the kids naturally gravitate towards that, right? Look at this
They recognize, they relate to them. Yeah.
And then the parents are like, oh, but he's sober and he's a counselor, so he's great. So it becomes this like big fake thing, like I was telling you, they only put the what do you call it, charismatic people in the front, recruiting.
Yeah.
Is the front face. So,
and I mean, and you're a pretty charismatic guy. I mean, just like throughout this whole podcast, people could see how they would want to use someone like you
right.
to draw others
Do some,
in.
right.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. So Crossroads, and it's here. I mean, were you responsible for it being here?
No. But actually, I think one of the girls that still works there, she was actually my outpatient patient.
Oh, okay.
The one that's running it now.
So
it was one of my outpatient people from back in the 90s, I would say.
Have you tried to reach out to some of these people to say, hey, look, I was kind of, red pilled, matrix wise, and say, hey, look, and what kind of responses do you get?
It can be hit or miss. So for a while, the documentary came out. It's called The Group. Right.
Okay.
So if you look at The Group and put Crossroads in Google, you'll find it.
Where is it at? Is it
it's on YouTube.
YouTube. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
It's about a 2-hour long thing. One of my outpatient people from back in the 90s did it. He's a documentary filmmaker, lives in Korea now. He put it out. I'm in it. Young me.
Gotcha.
Right. But it does paint the picture of what I'm trying to describe. As far as it being a cult, it has a lot of interviews with a lot of the old staff and stuff like that. So it's very informative. So I always tell people, go look at that. And I've ran into parents my age now. Yeah. Like I run into parents who have kids who are having problems, right? And they're like, hey, I put my kid in Crossroads, and I never really say anything because I'm like, oh God, I don't want to breach it, but fuck.
Yeah.
I
bet a part of you is just screaming inside to say, no, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Do you ever have like PTSD from it? Do you ever have moments where you're like, where all of a sudden something will trigger you, something will remind you, like seeing a child whose parent just says, "Yeah, I put him in Crossroads." Anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I live PTSD every day. Only in the fact that I'm the last person anybody will control. Like I'm so like my own thing, and it's me and my wife even talk about it. Where I'm like I'm so no one's gonna tell me what to do kind of thing, and I've been that way since then. And with all my endeavors and business and everything, even my personal life. Yeah. And so me and my wife talk about it. She's like, well, you're just so, independent. And I really am because of that, So,
I mean, so cults, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, culture, the root word is cult, it's a set of beliefs and this and that, blah, blah, blah. But I think when we talk cult, we think of the negative context with it, where as far as like the brainwashing and the control. Yeah. How common are they today in that sense?
I think that people, when they think of cult, I think they think of like Jim Jonesy type shit, right? But it's much more subtle now, because we're smarter people. We've evolved as humans. It's much more subtle, which makes a program like Crossroads more dangerous.
Gotcha.
Right? Because it's harder to recognize those cult characteristics.
Yeah.
Right? Charismatic leader, set of rules, and the ideology. Anybody outside of here is shitbags, where they're all fucked up. Right? They're fucked up. Even you as a casual drinker, you're fucked up.
Really?
Like there's no such thing.
There's a lot of other ways I'm fucked up. Yeah. We won't get into those right now.
Yeah, me too.
No, right. Yeah, but no, that is crazy. I mean, did you sacrifice relationships with your family, with your parents?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. What about like somebody like Johnny? You guys have known each other for kids.
Yeah, that was all out. Really? Never communicate with anybody.
Wow. And now you guys are like, it's almost like you guys haven't lost a step.
Right.
Like you guys are like reliving that childhood again. That is just crazy. What's your message to somebody out there that maybe is having problems like drinking, drug abuse, something along those lines, and they might be looking at an organization, something to kind of get them out of this. Yeah. Whether it's like a program or an institute, whatever. What would your message be to them?
I would just say go to AA.
Okay.
I mean, go sit in a meeting, listen to it, fucking hear what they have to say. If it resonates with you, stick around. If it doesn't, grow up, handle your liquor. I mean, I honestly am I've seen a lot of drug addicts in my life, especially working there and throughout, even in my career in the music industry and the clubs and everything. And I think people go through periods of life where they are a drug addict or an alcoholic, but they don't always have to be. I'm going through something, so I'm drinking like a fucking sailor right now.
Right.
And I think being able to recognize and having that insight is very useful. But if you can't get it, go to AA, man. Go to something that's proven, that's not a cult, that you can walk in and walk out. Take what you want and leave the rest kind of shit.
That's not going to decide who you date.
Yeah. It's not going to be like, hey, you better not put your dick in that.